What is up, my boys and girls? Welcome back to the channel. Another episode 12 of Farms Out. We're looking kind of big, actually. We started going to the gym again, boys. Woke up today, ate a bunch of steaks. Life is good. Good. We have a ton of time before our next KVK. So right now, we're just chilling. We did stream yesterday, and we will stream today. Yesterday, we were on stream. I had somebody go, oh yeah, like we have our KVK starting yet tomorrow. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? And I realized they weren't in 1365, and then I was like, oh, you're KVK2. I was like, that's great. I was like, that's wonderful. All right, guys, we have our first question here coming from Kilday Lol. Would I be an OL caster if I got the offer? The answer is yes. I do enjoy doing stuff with the Rise of Kingdoms community. As far as I know, I've already been an OL caster once. OL just isn't my forte. I don't know enough about it to really be like a comfortably good caster. As a color caster, I can definitely scream at the screen whenever anything interesting happens. I am pretty good. I've done color casting previously for a League of Legends org. I did casting and HR for them. I do really enjoy esports. I just think the main issue is I just don't think I am equipped enough knowledge-wise compared to a lot of the other content creators to be doing high quality casting. Now, on the flip side of that, if they're like, hey, like we just need somebody to kind of be funny while the match is going on, I could do that, right? That's not a huge issue for me. It just depends on what they're looking for. All right, next question from Yaming Hazal. Hey 12, what do you think about engineering commanders and a siege account as an FTP? This is what I'll say. Siege is very effective and very efficient. So it's effective at getting you kill points, it is extremely efficient resource-wise, and it's pretty good time-wise as well. The bigger issue comes into play that if you invest 1,400 sculptures, you can invest less, but realistically, if you wanted to be a main, if you wanted to specialize in something, you should invest more. If you're hyper investing into Siege like this, Siege does not pair well with like anything else, right? So like if you have an infantry march or a cavalry march or an archer march, your siege march is not going to complement them in any way. So all of the sculptures you're putting in, everything you're putting in is number one, it's not going to complement what you already have. And number two, it is subject to the change of the meta. For example, if we had a commander come out that gave you 50% counterattack reduction or 50% range attack reduction, like it was some kind of shield commander, just like we have Mighty Heal, if we had something that gave us like a particularly large shield and just called it a day, if you're running Siege, you're toast. Right? Like you are completely subject to the meta completely, which is why we like to diversify our marches. Just like when somebody asks me like, should I be an infantry? I'm like, oh, I don't think you should be an infantry for this, and this reason. The thing with infantry is you can have skill damage and normal damage, and you might have stuff later that you can still slot around in the meta. In terms of Siege does one thing and it does it extremely well. I'd be very hesitant because I'm thinking about a Siege march right now. Right, once I finish my fifth march, I'm gonna have 2 infantry, 2 cavalry, 1 archer. My 6th march is either going to be the new archers being released, and then I'm going to bench one of the other guys, or I'm gonna make a whole siege march, right? But I already have 5 marches, so my siege march doesn't take anything away from me. That's what you generally have to think. I would not invest in a siege with the idea that Season of Conquest siege is going to be your very first march. You could do okay kill point wise, but a couple things is one, bigger kingdoms are not just gonna take your one siege march, right? It's a lot like having a Til Takeda rush before, where it's like, oh, like this man has Pakal Herald or AT, we're not just gonna accept him based off of that. He doesn't have enough to like truly diversify into what we're looking for, because you can't push with your allies, you can't run with your allies, you can't really follow ball points, right? You can only really play flags, and some KVKs have a lot of flag play, and some KVKs don't have a lot of flag play. I think the biggest thing is that Siege is just largely inflexible, so I would not be playing off Siege because you want your account to be as flexible as possible. That's the whole point, right? Like if you're a high spender, then you can afford to invest into something that doesn't really matter in the future. If you are not a high spender, you probably can't. All right, next question from Ibrahim. Hey 12, what should the marches for KVK2 be? Because 95% of the players not go for YSheet or Alex and Epic's can be weak. That's a really good question. We're at a point in the game to where I don't really like investing in stuff right now for KVK2. I mean, like technically you could invest into Alex, and Alex is good in Season of Conquest as a secondary to LC, but he's not the best, right? You'd rather have Wallace. If you'd rather have Wallace, and you know, Wallace is currently future-proof, Alex is only going to get worse as time goes on, whereas other Smite commanders are only going to get better. The main reason why Alex is so good is number one, because of his museum, but number two, because of his double attack, right? If Alex falls off the map, his double attack becomes much worse. Another thing to notice is Alex is going to cost you museum. So if you're running YSG, if you're running Ethelfled, if you're running Richard, Martel, if you're running any of these commanders, Minamoto, and you have to museum them, your museum is now competing with Alex. Really important food for thought there. I would say if you're running KVK2, you might just run like Richard Sun 2 or like Sun Tzu Ethelfled or like Baybar Sun Tzu or something like that. Like you might be running some weird combination of epics and you might get the tar beaten out of you repeatedly. That just kind of is what it is. Like you are a newer account. I really would not consider investing sculptures to try and avoid it. The Sun Tzu Ethelfled, just run your one march, maybe Sun Tzu Ethelfled and or Baybar's or Richard Sun Tzu, Bjorn Sun Tzu, and then like Baybar's Ethelfled could work as well. Like there are a few different combos you could do, but just remember, like you're gonna get beaten up KVK2, and that's okay. Like we don't have to be like a huge contender every single KVK, especially early game. I see it a lot, and this generally, like this thought process generally leads to investments, and you just look at the investment later and you're like, like I should not have done that. You know, later on when like somebody gets like coaching or somebody's like asking questions and people asking for screenshots of their accounts, just like a very embarrassing thing. It's like, like I should have held on to this for like 10 more seconds and I would have been fine. That's how I kind of feel about KVK2. Like KVK1 is pretty easy to run whatever you want. KVK2 is just, it's okay to suck KVK2. I just wouldn't worry about it too hard. Okay, and our final fourth question here is gonna be, actually this is a comment and this was not on this video. This was from Boysify. This is on a video where I was talking about early game marches, I believe. And he said, you should have mentioned commanders that players got lucky on the chest with. I put a few gold heads on Martel because I get them on the chest more often, and it's for KVK1. Going for Richard will sacrifice more gold heads for me with insignificant improvement. Your kill points won't be changed at all. New players may disregard their 4-1-1 Martel, and instead they might put more gold heads on Richard, which is 1-1-1. That's a big mistake for me. When I see messages like this, it is very, 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 very tempting to invest in like Martel or Mehmed or one of these commanders that you may have like extra elbow grease into because you pulled a couple from keys. When situations like this arise, the big question isn't what is going to be useful for this one specific KVK, it is why am I investing in these commanders? So the reason why you invest in Richard is not for the open field, although he will also be used for the open field. It is okay that he costs more sculptures than Martel because Richard is useful. You know, we invest in Richard because Richard is going to be really strong late game. We invest in Richard because he's going to be a really strong economic piece at all stages of the game. He's going to be a decent fighter early game. He's going to be a good auxiliary skill late game. And you know, he's just okay overall, right? He's a pretty cheap piece to invest in for that reason. Martel, again, while he would be cheap to invest like 10 or 20 sculptures into, can you afford to invest 10 or 20 sculptures into Martel at that point? Richard will pay himself off. When we talk about Martel, in what concept of Martel pay himself off? What vehicle does he have in order to give you economic value, right? My Richard has paid himself off thousands, not thousands of times over, but like at least 100 times over. Like Richard has gotten me a lot of gems, a lot, very easily. I've gotten so much use out of him. He was worth every single penny. I'm gonna have Martel expertise. It's been about like 3 years of play, so I understand why people don't want to wait for that. But at the same time, like you're not gonna expertise Martel early. You're talking about putting like a few sculptures into him just to try and get him to a usable state. But, you know, you're going to be delaying your level 60 from Richard. You're going to be spending gold stars that you don't have. And these gold stars, you know, you get Richard to level 60, and then you're basically waiting for Season of Conquest so you can level 60 like a couple other gold commanders so you can use them in your 5 March. Level 16 Martel alongside level 16 Richard, outside of just the gold head cost, you're talking about 60 million XP and about 400 to 600 gold stars, right? And that's a hefty price, boys. That's it for the farms, guys. All the farms are out, as is the name of the show. He said the thing. If you guys want your questions featured in the next video, make sure you go to the comments below and comment anything you want me to read or respond to or anything like that. You guys can ask me questions. You guys can say comments. Generally pretty good about it. You know, the more there is in there, maybe I'll do like 3 some days, 5 other days, you know, some of which are shorter or longer. This is already a pretty long video. But I want you guys to have an absolutely wonderful day. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you guys want to donate, the Streamlabs link in the description below. That's the #1 way to support us financially. Liking, commenting, subscribing, all this stuff helps so much. If you guys really want to help. And if you guys are looking for coaching, we do coaching on stream for 35 bucks a session and coaching off stream for 75 bucks a session. If you guys are interested in that type of thing, go to the Discord in the description below and open a ticket. Other than that, guys, have yourselves a wonderful day. Thank you so much for dropping by, and I will see y'all later in the next episode of Farms Out.